Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. And let's see, in 3.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 124.
Whoa.
I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Titanium.
Professor.
Big week this week. I mean...
we got content flowing in from all directions.
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, man.
One of our favorite shows is back. One of our new favorite shows is on. And we got a couple of good pieces of news to discuss that we're pretty happy about. So let's jump right into it. What do you say, Titanium?
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and the dick explosions.
I'm telling you. Boy, this show keeps delivering, man.
Sure does.
Oh, man. All right, well, before we get started, let's thank the patrons, the listeners who bring the show to you. Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a member. Really helps the show out. If you are a member of the patronship, it's a way to support the show directly. We really appreciate all those that you do it. Please join the patronship, patreon.com/SuperTalk. All right, well, let's jump right into the review section, and we'll talk about... So we reviewed on our last episode, episodes 1 and 2 of Gen V, because we had seen them early in the theater. Episode 3 came out like a day after we did our last show, and then we also get episode 4 this past week. So we'll talk about 3 and 4 real quick. We'll do a brief summary of 3, and then really want to get into episode 4 because I think that was a more meaningful episode. I think episode 3 was very much a kind of a filler episode, I would call it like a transition episode.
Really
right?
was, yeah.
Where we got the first 2 episodes kind of gave us the whole backstory of the school, the plot around Golden Boy, him killing himself, what's going on at the school, how the executives and Vought are kind of controlling things. Well, episode 3 really kind of got into some of that. We find out that the boy who was trying to escape the school in the first episode was Golden Boy's brother, Sam.
Sam, yeah.
And he's being held in the basement of the school in what is being referred to by the faculty as the Woods.
Golden Boy Luke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the faculty calls it that too. So
yeah.
who knows about the Woods?
Right.
And I think we saw it was Andre pulled up on the headmaster's computer in episode 2. He had pulled up some information about the Woods on his computer when he was hacking into it. So,
right.
So there is this facility that they're holding some of these kids down there in this place. We find out he's being held there. Andre finds out, and he tells Cate about it, and Cate says, you're just going to put yourself at risk if you go out on a limb and try to save him, and all this other stuff, and it seems like they're getting funky with each other now all of a sudden.
Yeah,
she's totally shady. Don't you agree?
Cate?
Yeah,
something's weird. Something's going on.
She's off.
Yeah,
I think she's potentially working for. I don't know, but something's off with her.
Yeah. All of a sudden now she's globbing on to Andre.
Right.
And now
he's the
new couple.
He's the new number 1 now, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and we did hear that in episode 4 that, she had changed her major from crime fighting to superhero management, right?
Yeah.
And
she was going to manage Golden Boy.
Yeah, she was going to give up her, career as a superhero to manage Golden Boy's career. And so now she's looking for potentially a new person to latch on to, and Andre seems like the logical one, and she's attractive and obviously has powers of persuasion if she really wants to use them. But so they're hooking up.
It's interesting that if she uses them too much, Andre calls it "you're pushing too hard," and she gets damaged. You see like the blood in her eye and things like that. I think if she pushes too hard or uses her powers too much, she and I think that's important to remember going forward.
Yeah, we'll kind of maybe see some of that. Won't get too much into this, but Marie and Emma are fighting with each other. There's just one of these spats. I think Emma's very jealous of the attention that Marie's getting. But Marie gets invited by the dean to a benefit dinner that's being held that evening for the headmaster that was killed. And so she goes, because now she's kind of the new favorite in the school as far as Vought is concerned. They're trying to market her, and invites Emma to come with her.
She's number 2.
Right.
Never before has a freshman made it to number 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's the new big stuff. But Emma's at the party, and her mom is there as well. We kind of learn a lot about Emma and her powers, that she has to throw up to become small, which she's very embarrassed about. She has to eat to become big. And her mom is asking her to go onto a reality television show to kind of talk about her eating disorder and stuff, and try to use her. And there's this marketing person from Vought who's trying to say, hey, this is a really good thing for you and your career. We can really, little cricket, having an eating disorder is a really great thing. And she's like, you're going to be completely embarrassing me. I'm not doing any of this stuff.
She's kind of ashamed of it.
Yeah, exactly. So she runs out because she's mad at her mom. Andre goes outside and actually talks with them and says, hey, I need your help with something. And he realizes that there's no way into the woods facility in there because it's so highly secured and protected and there's guards everywhere, but Emma can get in.
Yeah. So
he convinces her to help, and of course she wants nothing more than to be part of the cool crew.
Right.
And so she feels like this is her way in.
Yeah.
So she's happy to help. And it was a pretty funny scene of her, getting small and crawling into the facility.
Get it? Got it? Good.
Yeah.
She's a great character, and
she's one of the best parts of the show.
She is. She's a scene stealer. She's one of the best parts of the show, and she's such a phenomenal character. But she ends up finding Sam.
Yeah.
Which was great, and their connection and their kind of banter back and forth.
He thought he was hallucinating.
Yeah.
And who wouldn't? You see this miniature tiny person walk into your cell, and it's he thinks he's hallucinating. He's like, you're real? She's like, absolutely I am. I'm here to save you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he says, this is not good. They're going to find out. They're going to come in here any minute.
Yeah.
We find out that the floor in his cell is electrified, and they can kind of shock him anytime they want to and disable him. And then one of the guards comes in, and he's like, oh my God, they found out. They know you're here. And she hides behind some stuff. She's really tiny, so she hides. And the guards, subduing Sam. And she crawls out from behind the books, runs up the guy's shoulder, jumps into his ear, and night.
Yeah. Crawls through his brain out to the other side.
Oh, my God.
Burrows through his brain out to the other side. Oh, my God. That was insane.
It was great. Yeah. So, again, I think very much episode 3, very much a filler episode, kind of a transition episode. We kind of get introduced to Sam, the character, which I think he's going to play a big role going forward, which we find out a little bit more in episode 4. So episode 4 starts off right at the end of that scene with Emma kind of crawling out of the guy's ear, and got stuff all over her, and Sam kind of is able to subdue the other guards, and they both escape the facility together, and they go hide out in an abandoned movie theater, right? I think it is.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, something.
It's
like
an
that.
arcade or something in there.
Arcade.
It's an abandoned movie theater
Right.
that he said I used to go there with his brother to watch movies.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of movie posters on the wall from
a little reminiscent of where Black Noir used to go and hide out and have all those.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Remind me a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's. Frankly.
Oh, really?
The entire interior of it. I was like, okay, here we go. But yeah, so they're hiding out, and Sam and Emma are kind of connecting, right? Sam kind of trusts her and says, "Hey, you saved me."
Yeah.
And she's a little bit bigger than she was before. She's like, "Yeah, I might have eaten a little bit of that guy's brain as I was crawling through it, or must have. That's how I'm getting a little bigger." But she ends up getting totally big. She eats some snacks out of the snack machine or whatever, and gets totally big. And they're kind of talking. But one of the big things is we find out Sam has these constant hallucinations.
Yeah.
And he's
mentally
troubled.
Mentally, yeah, he is troubled.
He's seeing I guess it's a parody of Sesame Street with a puppet of the Deep.
Yeah.
Whose gills talk.
Talking, yeah.
And this doctor, I think what's his name, Dr. Cardoza, who's played by John Ritter's son, which is kind of funny.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's an actor playing the doctor, but he blames the doctor.
It reminds
for
me
all
of John
problems.
Ritter a lot.
Yeah, he does look like him now that you know that.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the one that experiments on him and is part of the Woods' top secret, doctors, and he ends up thinking that he's the root of all evil.
Right. He's like, I got to kill this guy. You know, he's the one who's did this to me.
Well, the puppet, the puppet show convinced him that that's what he needs to do.
Right. Exactly. We back on campus. Marie, and this is the scene you were talking about in the opening. Marie goes to the blonde-haired guy, Rufus, who's a psychic, who has psychic powers, and says, "Hey, I need your help. Nobody knows where Emma is. She's been missing for a couple days. I need your help. Can you help me find him?" And he's like, "I can, but I need a better connection. You need to sit down next to me." And next thing you know, she wakes up in his bedroom, and he's completely naked with a bathrobe on. And she's like, "What the?" And she's like, "Oh, no, it's not what you think." And Jordan's banging on the door, like, "Open that door, open that door, open that door." And her powers kind of just take over.
Right.
You can describe it, Titanium. I'm not going to go.
I don't want to describe it. It still makes me, bend over in pain.
Well,
she explodes his dick.
Yeah.
She makes the blood in his penis get so...
Johnson starts growing, enraging with blood, and then...
Boom.
Jordan and breaks the door open, and when she does, the dick explodes.
Oh God!
I mean, again, we've said this show is as graphic and delivers on the graphic content that the boys show does, and that's about as graphic as you're going to get.
That was one of those out of many oh my God moments. You're like, holy shit, they just did that. That was crazy. I mean. This show is just full of those moments, and so was The Boys, to be honest with you. But that was something else, and it actually highlighted an aspect of her powers that we haven't seen before.
That she can control the blood in other people.
Of other people. We kind of saw it when she put the blood back into the lady's neck in episode 2, I believe. She kind of saved.
It was episode 1. I think it was the first
episode 1. Yeah. She kind of saved this woman at a club that got her artery severed, and she kind of redirected the blood back into her artery and sealed it so she wouldn't bleed out. So that's interesting. She's starting to actually learn how to control blood in other people's.
Yeah, that was insane. Another big subplot to this episode was the introduction to a new character, Tek Knight. So Tek Knight is a character from the boys' comic books. He is, and the reason why his name is Tek Knight is kind of a combination of Iron Man and Batman, right? He's kind of this rich guy, no compound V powers. He's just a normal person who's really rich, who uses his money has a lot of technology, kind of suits like Iron Man does, but he's also kind of like the Dark Knight, so he's kind of a detective as well.
A master detective that has a show about solving crimes.
Yeah, and what's the name of the show?
Truth.
Whole Truth.
The Whole Truth, yeah.
The whole truth.
Yeah.
And we find out that he has, at some point in time, which we'll get into, an obsession with holes, which makes the name of the show very, very interesting.
Even in the comics, he was like a deviant pervert.
Oh.
And could not control his sexual...
They nailed this.
Yeah, they could not... He can't control his...
He's got a perversion.
Fetish. Yeah, he's got a bad perversion.
Yeah, and he can't control it, which we get into later in the episode. But they allude to it earlier in the show, where he's picks up a bagel and kind of looks at it like really funnily, and then he's got a glass in his hand and he's like rubbing the outside, the rim of it, right? And then they're just making allusions to it. And they're like, "What's going on with this guy?" And then we find out what it is later.
He goes into the classroom and he picks up some tape and he's like fondling the hole in the tape dispenser. It was weird.
It's crazy. I'm like, what the hell is he holding though? It's a tape dispenser. And he's like rubbing his finger around the hole of the tape dispenser.
He's got a perversion for holes. Any inanimate, I can't even say that word. Inanimate object with a hole in it.
Yeah. So he is a really good detective, and he's been training himself as a detective for a long time. So he's able to tell if people are lying, when they're truthful, by how they're sweating, how their arteries are pulsing, the retinas are dilating or whatever. He's a really good detective. So he ends up going into the classroom and he's doing a demonstration on interrogation. And of course he brings Marie up and is able to get her to expose the truth of what happened with the fight with Golden Boy. That Jordan was the one who intervened.
Jordan saved her.
Jordan saved everybody. The only reason why we are where we are is because, so she did come forward with all of that. but he was able to kind of get her to kind of come clean. And the dean, Satya, I think is her name.
She's just something about her. She's evil.
Yeah. I don't think she's afraid of Tek Knight, but I think she's afraid of Vought and knows that he's there on Vaught's behalf.
Yes.
And he basically,
wasn't he a graduate though of God?
He was.
She says that, yeah.
He went to GodU.
Yeah.
But I think the story is that he paid his way into GodU basically through donations, right? But he was told by her that do not touch the top 5. The top 5, you're not supposed to mess with. Everybody else is fair game.
Yeah.
And he was messing.
Those are big earners.
Right.
For Vought, yeah.
And he's messing with Marie, and he's like, she's like, I thought I told you not to mess with those top 5 kids, and he's like, yeah. He said, I heard you, but I've come to a conclusion that they're not, who I'm after.
You're not going to be my patsy.
Yeah, I'm looking for another patsy, and I think it's going to be you.
Yeah.
So I'm going after you. You're the one who's going to take the fall for all of this. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she does frame him, and this is where we find out about his perversion. She takes him into the woods, away from all the cameras and everything else, and says, I've got something to show you. And she pulls out an iPad, and on it she's like, so you were diagnosed with a brain tumor. She's got his MRI results and shows his brain tumor. And the brain tumor is responsible for a dislikable, aversion that you have right now, an obsession. And then we see these video clips of him basically pummeling, desecrating everything with a hole in it.
Yes. A bagel.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
Like he's sitting on the ground with a shop vac, and he's got the shop vac on top of him, and he's in the bathroom and climbs up on top of a mop bucket so he can get to the air, the hand dryer for the thing, and the car was the best one.
Oh,
he's
the gas.
pummeling the gas.
Twisted. How twisted is this fucking show?
Oh man, it was awesome.
A bagel.
He basically backs down and goes on his show and says, "Hey, I think I've kind of come to the conclusion there's nothing going on here at the school that needs my attention."
Yeah, Golden Boy just lost it, and sometimes the simplest answer is the answer.
So what ends up happening from there is Sam runs out of the movie theater after he's had his last episode with the Avenue V television show and the puppet show, and he realizes he has to go kill the doctor. Emma is freaked out, thinks he's going to do something bad. She runs back and finds all the other kids, says, hey, we need to stop him. And Andre knows where the doctor lives, so they all go off to stop him. And he's basically broken into this doctor's house and taken the family captive and is going to kill the doctor. Andre comes in and slams a refrigerator up against him, and Jordan's kind of taking him on a little bit. And we see Emma, and Marie throws her blood at him, but he's too strong for all of them. And Emma goes in the back and grabs a bowl of spaghetti and is just like housing it in this back room. And then she comes out giant,
huge,
and just grabs him and puts him on the ground, says, you need to stop.
You need to calm down. We're here. We're going to get it. We're going to get through this together.
Yeah.
And even Marie was like, we're not going to let anything happen to you. And then all of a sudden it cuts to black.
Yeah, it was weird. When you're watching the show, they're having this discussion, all of a sudden it goes to black, and you're like, what happened? Did it, am I streaming? Did the stream go out or whatever? And all of a sudden Marie wakes up in her bed with Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, they hooked up.
Yeah.
At one point in time in the show. And she's like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And so something happened.
Something's going on, and I got a theory. I think...
I would love to hear your theory, because I'm confused about what's going on.
Okay, so this is what I think is going on. Somehow somebody's controlling their time. Like, I saw a preview where Marie is saying, and the other people agree, that I'm losing chunks of time.
Oh, that's the preview for next episode.
Preview for next episode.
There's pieces of days that are missing that I can't get back.
I can't remember half the day yesterday, or where I was, or I can't remember how I got into this. And it started with Rufus when she sat next to Rufus. So I don't know if he's involved in this mind wash or this time jumping, but something
it seems similar to what happened to Marie when she ended up in his room, is what you're saying. Yes, very similar to that. And I think it has something to do with either the food
they're feeding them there to control them, to kind of like switch them off so that they forget what they've done and they just robotically go back to their dorm or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're being programmed, and I think all of them are missing time throughout the day. So that'll be interesting. That's a great little twist, to find out who's controlling them. Is it another soup? Is it somebody at the school, or is it Vought themselves?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's distracting. You have a tape dispenser back there on the shelf. Can you hand that to me real quick?
Yeah, that's what he was doing. He was like
all right.
playing with it. So bizarre.
I'll save that one for later.
That was bizarre.
Yeah.
What a kinky fetish. This show, man, pushes the limits. It's so great. If you're not watching it, you gotta watch this show.
And here's what I love about what Amazon's done. And we said this when we first saw the first couple of episodes in the theater. They knew they had something big with The Boys. And they doubled down on The Boys in season 2 and 3 and just kept everything going. It was the same thing. It was exactly what they were giving us, what we liked, and they kept delivering. And they knew that this really resonated with the audience. And they're like, why don't we just make something similar? We'll just come up with a new concept and new characters, and we'll kind of make this all up on our own. We won't base a lot. We'll draw some things from the comics, but there's no real comic books.
Incorporate a few characters.
Yeah, but we'll have some cameos from Boys, from the Boys cast, but we'll just do our own thing. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It is literally. I mean, the showrunners and the writers on these shows are awesome.
Yeah,
and we've said this so many times on our podcast, Titanium, is that good characters played by good actors with really good writing make for good, entertaining shows and movies.
The story is so important.
And I'm just saying the writing on this show is so good.
Yeah.
I mean, the dialogue's good, the acting's good,
Yeah.
the pace is good.
Right.
They're just really doing it right. So
Looking
hats
forward
off,
to it.
Amazon. You're doing whatever you're doing, keep on doing it because it's working.
Another home run for Amazon for sure. Yeah, I can't wait for the next episode. We'll cover that.
Absolutely. We'll talk about it next week for sure. All right. Well, there are a couple news items I do want to get into. Not too many this week, but I do want to talk about a couple of things. Kind of big story that broke really earlier today. News outlet The Wrap reported that Deadpool 3 will retain its May release date even after the actor strike is over.
That is aggressive.
Huge news, by the way. Huge news. And here's the reason behind their and again they're getting this from multiple sources that have really good information about this. And I've heard this from multiple places now too. After I saw this, I'm like, let me go see what else I can find. I've seen this elsewhere as well. The way the studios are handling the actor strike. So the writer's strike is over.
Yeah.
So, and as a matter of fact, it was ratified officially today. So that's another big piece of news that the Writers Guild of America ratified it. 99% of the writers signed the bill or signed the new deal.
Contract, yeah.
There were 90 individuals who did not sign the new deal, but 99% of those that are in the union did sign it, which is really, really great news. Means that they did come up with a deal that both sides were pretty happy with. Once that deal was initially announced, the writers went back to work. The picket lines were broken, and they were able to go back to work while they were getting the official deal signed. Every one of these major studios is now putting those writers back to work on the things that they need their attention on the most right now. It's like, hey, here's where we're putting you. Most important that we get this one back on track or whatever. We've heard that like the Blade script was like a big thing for we need to make sure this is finalized. So we want to start. We're in pre-production. We want to start filming this movie soon. The other thing we've heard is that the Actors Guild or Screen Actors Guild, they believe that strike will end in the next month. Right? Okay. They're hopefully they're back at the table negotiating terms of a new deal, and they are talking. So talks haven't stopped. They are talking actively right now. Yeah. And they do believe now...
Since last Monday, I believe.
Yeah. They do believe that is going to end sometime in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And what Marvel has said is that when the actors' strike is over, they are putting the actors back to work on the projects that were in production at the time the strike happened. And the two projects that they had going on at the time were Captain America 4. They have reshoots to do and potential, edits that they have to bring the actors back for, and maybe some voiceover work. So they're bringing them back for that. But they said Deadpool 3 is priority number 1, and they are going full steam on getting that finished. They said that every resource will be put to bear for that movie. And here's what else I heard, and the reason why while that date is aggressive, it's possible. While the writers and actors have been on strike, the VFX teams have been working really hard to get all of their work done.
Got it.
So that when they
There's no delay. Yeah.
Right, so that when they can come back and film new scenes, that it's just the scenes with the live actors in them, filming dialogue and speaking, scenes with other characters in them. The VFX specific scenes have been worked on since the strikes happened.
Got it, yeah.
Because those teams did not go on strike,
Right.
right? So they're saying that this May date is going to happen. Now, what I do believe is that it's highly likely, if not probable, we may only get 2 movies from Marvel next year. We may only get
Agreed.
Deadpool and Captain America next year. Yeah. And anything that was planned afterward.
That would be a win as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But if they get that May date, and again, there's no official announcement or anything yet, but I do believe that they're planning for that May date, and they really need it. And I think that they've got a plan to make it happen, and I trust in Ryan Reynolds. He's not going to put out a bad product. If it's not right and it's not ready, he's not going to do it.
Yeah, and then we know we're going to get Echo next year, and we know we're going to get Agatha, the Darkhold Diaries that next year. But
we've got What If Season 2. We've got the X-Men 97. We've got a bunch of content coming out on Disney Plus next year for sure.
But I did hear that Ironheart has been pushed to 2025.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Anything with a lot of live action, that's what we were talking about. X-Men 97 and What If make a lot of sense because they're animated.
Animators, yeah.
And all that voice work was done early on in the production process. They're now just animating cells. That makes a lot of sense. Echo's already in the can.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Agatha had already gone through principal production. They probably have a little bit of reshoots to do, so that one they can get done. There's a lot of rumor and conjecture that the Vision Quest series has been shelved, at least for now. The writer who was working on that script prior to the strikes, after coming back off the strike, removed that script from her profile. So it's possible that she's no longer working on that script, and it's been shelved, at least temporarily, if not totally been shelved. I think it's, we were looking forward to potentially that Vision Quest series answering what happened to White Vision after WandaVision, right? I think it's highly likely, if not possible, that we may see him now in the Wonder Man series, because that was another series that was getting ready to start shooting when the Screen Actors went on strike.
Yeah, I did hear it needed some rewrites, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, great news for Deadpool. If this is true, we're hoping it is true. If they make that May date, we're excited. And if they can get those actors back on set and get this stuff done, boy, that would be a home run for Marvel.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're going to button down on the resources on those 2 movies to make sure that we get them next year would be great. Deadline had a big story this past week as well, that once the writer's strike was over, they posted an ad, or basically an open audition for scripts for an X-Men feature, so a full X-Men movie. So they're going to be. They've asked all the writers,
"Hey, pitch party."
It's a pitch party.
Yeah.
We're listening to pitches for an X-Men movie,
right?
And all those writers out there
your best shot.
That have a script or have an idea, or you want to do a pitch. Here's your chance. And so we're inviting you to come in to pitch us your idea for the X-Men movie. 2 good things about this story. One, that they're making an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Is great. It's a movie. It's not a series on Disney Plus. It's nothing. It's a movie. Highly likely this happens after Secret Wars. We've talked about this before, that potentially We may see some of the X-Men characters and the actors playing them in the Secret Wars movie, and then we'll have a full movie after Secret Wars once the universes are combined or whatever they're going to do with Secret Wars. But yeah, this could be a 2027 movie. But the fact that they're pulling a pitch party right now for ideas for a script is great news.
Yeah. Encouraging.
Very, very encouraging. All right, well, let's get into our topic of the week. We'll do our review of Loki Season 2 premiere episode. This is brought to us by our friends over at Studio GG Studios.
Studio GG Studios, home of the man band, Corn on the Cob.
Studio G, thanks for your help with everything you do for us.
Appreciate it, guys.
And hope everything's going well down there at the studio. All right, well, let's talk about it. I mean, this... I told you earlier, Titanium. I out of town this weekend on a boys trip, and I had to watch this over multiple days and kind of fell asleep a couple times and had to go back and rewatch parts of it. So I'm going to need your help, a lot of your help, kind of breaking this down because there are some very confusing parts of this to me, as well as some things that kind of might not have hit me correctly. But
there's the good, there's the bad, there's the pros, there's the cons. And you just mentioned one of the biggest cons and probably the worst part about the series so far in episode 1.
Is that it's confusing.
It's confusing as hell. It is very, very confusing.
I do think they did a pretty good job of trying to explain to us what happened, but I think confusion was part of their intention, at least in the early part of the episode, right? So we pick up in the beginning of the episode is the end of last season, right? Mm-hmm. Where Loki's back in the TVA, Mobius and Agent 13. Is it Agent 13?
B-15?
B-15.
Mm-hmm.
B-15 are there. They're talking to each other. Hey, the timeline's going crazy.
It picks up exactly where season 1 ended.
They don't recognize him. They don't know who he is. Yeah. They realize he's a variant. Yeah. He goes running away. People are chasing him. He jumps off the side of a building, falls into a mail truck.
Yeah.
And he has no idea what's going on, but then kind of blips.
Yeah.
And he's now back in the present.
He's been time slipping. So he's slipping between, and he's not going to other multiverses. He's going back or forward into time within where he is.
Within the TVA.
Yeah, so he's going vertical. He's not going sideways, or he's not going to any multiverse. He's going to the same universe.
He's in the exact same physical location, and he's going from that same physical location between right now to potentially 50 years ago, to potentially 50 years from now, right? So he's out of sync with time.
Yeah. And the confusing part is that his present is in the future, but when he comes back to the old present, that's his future. It's so confusing.
Well, there were a couple of times in the episode where he would be talking to somebody and they don't know what he's talking about. Then he would blip back in time and talk to that same person back in time about something, then come back to the present, and that person was like, "Oh, I remember. I have this thing over here that we were talking about." Yeah, so... and he's one of the best parts of the...
He's great. He's like Emma in Gen V. He's a scene stealer.
So Ki-Hee Kwan, from Everything Everywhere All Once, The Goonies, we short round from Indiana Jones, right? Yeah. He is now in the show as a character, which is
and that's the good.
Yeah.
The good is the characters are strong, and the relationships and the chemistry between Morbius and Loki is unbelievable, and now Obi is in there, and that whole chemistry is just great, and the characters are great, and without all the other confusion of time travel and what's going on and who's the future and who's controlling things and all the branches of time and in the future and in the past. All that is very, very confusing, but at least the characters are like the anchor. It anchors this show.
Sure it does, yeah. And the interaction between all of them. We do get introduced to Obi. We find out that he's responsible for all of the technology at the TVA. So he created everything. Created the portals, the sticks. He created everything. He wrote the manual on how everything works at the TVA. So Obi's, Mobius is talking to him, say, hey, we need your help. Something's going on with this guy, and he blips out, comes back, and goes, oh, he's out of sync of time. We got to fix this. Comes up with this idea that, okay, he's out of sync with time, so what we need to do is purge him and then pull him back through the time stream to our present location.
Right.
So we're going to purge him and send him to the void.
Right.
And then we're gonna basically hook him up and pull him back into our present from the void after he's been purged.
Yeah.
That's the only way to reset him, basically.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And we do find out that there is a machine that is running at the TVA that's responsible for collapsing all of the rogue kind of branch timelines into the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's kind of like that they have to hook up to.
Yeah, it's like a giant weaving device that kind of pulls all the different branches and weaves them into one main, the main timeline.
Yeah, and the TVA, because they know now, Mobius and B15 know the truth that there are no timekeepers, and Loki exposes that to the rest of the judges.
Right.
They're having a big meeting in a conference room of what to do, because they have the head of one of the timekeepers on a table, and Loki shows up, blips in there and sees that when he was in the past, there was this big screen of He Who Remains on the front of the conference room, and it wasn't there anymore. And he blows away the screen that was there, and that thing was. And he said, "This is the guy who's responsible for all this."
He prunes the mosaic or the artwork that was there of the timekeepers, and behind it is the faces of He Who Remains and Kang, basically.
Yeah, Kang. Yeah, and Mobius and B15 are like, they're kind of in this. They're troubled now because they're like, do we tell everybody that works here that they're all variants from splinter timelines and they've been kidnapped to come work here and their minds have been wiped?
Right.
Or do we just keep it a secret?
Right.
But we can't keep working the way that we were because there are no timekeepers anymore. Right. And by the way, Miss Minutes is no longer working properly because He Who Remains is dead. Right.
Yes.
So they're kind of confused at what the next step is and what do we do? And the other judges, especially the one judge, the general, what's her name? I can't remember.
Yeah.
She's kind of squirrely.
Yeah. Has this weird relationship with one of the soldiers there.
I can't remember her name.
He's S05, S5.
Yeah. But yeah, he's kind of squirrely.
Something's up with those two.
But she's like, I don't care about all this. We need to get things back under control. We need to get these rogue timelines back under control.
Right.
And Mobius is like, look, we're killing innocent people. I mean, that's what the TVA is doing. We're pruning these timelines and killing people that are innocent. They have no idea that they're rogue time, variants or whatever, right? And so they don't want to keep doing that anymore. And, Mobius was talking to Obi about this. It's like, if we could find a way to bring these timelines kind of back under control, we don't have to get rid of them. We can just control them, right? And just manage them. So they're trying to come up with a better solution for that. Yeah.
So confusing.
It is.
It's super confusing. And it's probably the worst part about the show, to be honest with you, because the novice will lose interest, especially after that first. I think that first episode pulled a lot of people in, but I know a lot of people that saw it called me or texted me and was like,
okay, what's going on?
What's going on? I don't understand. Understand. That's where you lose people, man. You lose a lot of people.
And again, I think the first episode's the hardest episode because you have to back up what you ended the first season with, and then you have to kind of build the plot for the next season very quickly in a very short episode, 45-minute episode. But I think what ends up happening is Mobius gets in this big suit, brings the device that Obi had created out to the time machine, threading machine, puts it in there, and it's like, okay, once you put it in, we're gonna prune Loki, and then you're gonna latch onto him and then pull him back in.
Yeah, and he time twitches. Time
Loki
slider.
Twitches like he's about to prune himself, and he twitches and loses the wand, the pruning wand, ends up in the future, and he's in the conference room, but he's not in the past, he's not in the present, he's in the future. And he's in that same conference room.
Yeah.
And the phone starts ringing. And he's like, that's strange. The phone.
Yeah, he's trying to find a pruning device. He's trying to find a stick. and he's kind of walking through the halls, and he hears this phone, and he's walking down towards the elevator, and he's looking at the phone, and shot at his face, and he's looking at the phone. Very weird. There's like something weird about that phone ringing. And then as soon as that happens, the elevator doors start to be pried open, and it's Sylvie. Sylvie's like, there you are. And you could just see a tear coming down his face. And then he gets pruned in the nick of time to save his life.
She prunes him.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. She's the one who pruned him.
No.
For sure.
Nope.
You don't think so?
No.
Really?
Yeah. My boy Chad, if you haven't checked this out, go to the Geek Cast. Chad had a great theory, and we were going back and forth on Twitter, and he's like, well, you got to see my episode for my philosophy. And I was like, oh, all right. So I watched his little podcast, Chad at the Geek Cast, and his theory is a variant of Loki pruned himself, came back and saved him by pruning him. Because if you look at it, he gets pruned from behind. You can actually, as he's disappearing, you can see the stick behind him. So somebody behind him pruned him. And Chad seems to think it was a variant of Loki. I either think it was a variant of Loki, or maybe Morbius went back or to that period and pruned him.
Mobius.
Mobius, yeah.
It's
Morbius.
easy to confuse the two.
Yeah.
I also have a theory that the general, that's one of the judges right now, that's a kind of questionable one. Yeah. I think she's a old Sylvie.
Oh, really?
I think she's Sylvie grown up.
And the soldier is her son? Oh.
Or their son.
Wow. Yeah, that could be cool.
So I think she's Sylvie, 30 years from now.
Right.
And she realizes what happens and knows she has to go back to the TV at this point in time to fix what ended up happening.
What she did.
I think she's a variant of Sylvie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we do know there's a huge cliffhanger in 4. So they released the first 4 episodes to a lot of insiders.
Did you see them?
They never. I guess the thumb drive got lost.
Did you check your junk mail?
Yeah, I guess it got lost. Yeah, the link got lost. But people are saying there's a huge cliffhanger at 4, so they're really excited about 5 and 6 to kind of close it all out. So we have that to look forward to. But I'm telling you, they have to really dumb this down for the next couple of episodes.
Well, and I've seen some early non-spoiler reviews of the first 4 episodes from people who did end up watching. They say it is the best series that's come out on Disney Plus so far. So I do believe, while this episode...
Do you think episode 1 was the best series so far?
No. And again,
and it wasn't.
How many
it was
Disney
good.
Plus
it was not
how many Disney Plus series would you have said after the first episode is the best series I've ever seen on Disney Plus?
Loki season 1,
the first episode
was not the best ever.
Right, you couldn't have,
but it was really good.
But you couldn't have come to that conclusion.
It was great, and WandaVision, the first episode, was bizarre and great too. But this episode, I would not put above those two at all. Yeah. So
again, a lot of it is they have to bridge the seasons and do some I'm going to give them a little bit of, but I believe it's going to get better quick. I do think.
Well, we know he goes and finds Sylvie.
Well,
right?
We got a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Then we found out where Sylvie went after she killed He Who Remains.
Yes.
She went to 1983, I think it was. Something in the 80s.
Yeah, 1982, 1983.
She went to
Oklahoma.
Went to Oklahoma in the 80s, walks into a McDonald's.
Yeah.
And, they're like, can we help you? And she's looking around the whole place and sees everybody in there just having a good time, happy just
living their lives,
eating these. She's like, I want to try everything.
Yeah.
And we've seen from the trailers of the series that she is wearing a McDonald's out.
She ends up working there.
She ends up working there, right? So we know that Loki's going back to find, or will find her eventually. And we've seen some scenes in the trailers that she is with the team at some point in time in some form. So, I'm look, all this episode did was want me to watch episode 2 more, right? Yeah, which is the purpose, right?
Yeah, I hope so. It's got to get better. The characters can't get any better. They're phenomenal.
And
the chemistry between the characters is off the charts. And I just, you're right. I think this was a setup episode.
Yeah.
And it happens to be the second most viewed. 10.9 million people in 3 days have streamed the episode 1. It's the second most viewed.
Was the most viewed?
Mandalorian, season 3.
First episode of season 3, man. So second most viewed episode of a series on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know. People were looking forward to this.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it delivers.
I do too.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Professor. That's bell has rung. School's over.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or @SuperTalkPod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we're out.
Thanks, YouTube.